All right, we are live. It's been a couple of days. I've been offline, recovering from the cold. And as much as I would have loved to have been here with you guys during that time, coughing every 5 minutes didn't seem to be the right way to go. And I figured that might have been a bit problematic for those who would want to enjoy a show. So thank you guys for joining me today. I see we've got Sam in the chat. Welcome, Diane. And I see Wolf, Master Wolf, not Master Chief, but Master Wolf. We got Susan, and yes. So again, welcome, guys. I got a kind of a twofer here today that I'm going to get into. The first is 3,000 arrests of non-citizens in Chicago. Operation Midway Blitz is going on. The federal government is doing their job, expunging non-citizens, those who do not belong in this country, as fast as they can, at least for now. But that isn't actually the primary focus of the story, even though we're going to get into it. It is the mayor's attempt to try and dox ICE agents to try and find a way to get them arrested, which is basically pushing for a constitutional crisis to, I don't want to use the term civil war, as some other content creators are saying out there, but they're pushing it there. And then the second thing I want to get to today, if I have time, and that is good old Antifa is still at it. We'll get to this one as well after we talk about the first story, where you got Turning Point USA. There's yet another attack, and this time it's in Boulder, and Antifa puts out a hit list. Because of course they do. And so some idiot on a skateboard with a hockey stick decides to assault somebody. So we'll get into that. But let's talk about Operation Midway Blitz. Let's talk about what in the hell is going on in Chicago, where you got that doofus Mayor Lori Lightfoot. So this is from the Post Millennial. Let's start here. This is written by Hannah Nightingale. She writes, nearly 3,000 arrests made in Chicago since start of Operation Midway Blitz, Border Patrol. And it was launched back in September. Border Control Commander Greg Bovino said on Monday that nearly 3,000 people have been arrested in the Chicago area since the Trump administration's immigration crackdown began in September. Operation Midway Blitz was launched in early September, with the Department of Homeland Security announcing it at the time, saying the DHS is launching Operation Midway Blitz in honor of Katie Abraham, who was killed in a drunk driving hit-and-run car wreck caused by criminal alien Julio Cucul-Bol in Illinois. This ICE operation will target the criminal illegal aliens who flocked to Chicago and Illinois because they knew Governor Pritzker, the governor who needs a lot of salads in his near future, and his sanctuary policies would protect them and allow them to roam free on American streets, which of course it did, by the way. Just like in California, where there's tens of thousands of people who have been getting commercial driver's licenses who are not citizens. I think it was like 60-something thousand, or between 60 and 70,000. Outrageous. So yeah, these states have absolutely been engaging in what I believe is criminal behavior, giving illegal aliens cover and giving them opportunities to work within the system, including getting jobs that have federal tendrils in them. Anyway, President Trump and Secretary Noem stand with the victims of illegal aliens, the statement said, while Governor Pritzker stands with criminal illegal aliens. So this was a report. Let's play this here.
It was supposed to be a Halloween parade in Old Irving Park turned to chaos.
Tear gas in Old Irving Park.
As ICE agents appeared to deploy tear gas through residential streets on Saturday.
There's a lot of complaining about this.
There was outrage over the arrest of a construction worker, Luis Villegas. His family says he was working on a now unfinished project before he was chased down and arrested by federal agents.
You know, they put it as a sob story that, oh no, he was working on a house project. Well, you know, if he wasn't here illegally, then that job could have gone to an American who could have used the money.
Villegas' family says he's an undocumented immigrant who has lived in the Chicago area most of his life.
Meaning a criminal for most of his life, breaking U.S. laws.
Tensions continued to grow after Border Patrol Commander Greg Bovino was photographed allegedly hauling a tear gas canister at protesters in Little Village last week. Bovino defending his actions this morning.
When we utilize force in law enforcement, this is in law enforcement in general, as we use force, that it's the least amount of force necessary to effect an arrest, or...
And I'm just going to add here that they need to use more force. In my book, this is not nearly enough. I think the federal government is being way too cautious about dealing with these thugs and these unruly crazies that are out there who are pushing for violence. I don't know. If it were me, I would be cracking a lot more skulls.
To affect the successful outcome of any given mission that we're on. So whether it's the use of tear gas or the use of hand techniques or any use of force by law enforcement, that's that least amount of force necessary to positively affect the outcome of that mission. And that's what we do here in Chicago.
He tells ABC News nearly 3,000 people have been arrested in Chicago so far since the immigration crackdown began last month. Many have criticized the legalities on how arrests have been made, including claims that no audible warnings are given before tear gas is deployed. The department...
And why should they, frankly? Everybody knows what the protests are doing. We're playing this stupid game of like, oh, well, they didn't give a warning. These guys are going out there and actively trying to cause violence. Everybody knows this is happening. I mean, what are we talking about here? Wolf says for $2, glad you got over COVID 2.0. Hey, I didn't say it was COVID. I said it was the flu. COVID, having had experienced it on election day 2020, is unique in that it makes you extremely tired. I've never been so tired in my life, but no, that was different. That was separate, Wolf.
Homeland Security also releasing this statement saying, during the operations, Border Patrol agents were surrounded and boxed in by a group of agitators. Federal law enforcement issued multiple lawful commands and verbal warnings, all of which...
And by the way, that should not have been tolerated. The Fed should have taken much more force there. And Sam says, I agree, a lot more force. Yeah, they're being way too nice. Now, I think that's on purpose. I think it's calculated. Because for there to be true mass deportation, you have to get the public on board. You have to get everyone behind you. And to do that, you have to have people believe that you are doing things in a way that is good and right. And so, if Trump had come out swinging, knocking heads, deporting hundreds of thousands of people per month, I think it would have devolved into mass violence because the left was triggered and ready for it. And it didn't play out the way they wanted to. And no, Wolf, I don't think it was COVID. Now, this is where the story gets weird. So you've got the 3,000 arrests, which is nice, but we still need to ramp it up because we're looking at, they're expecting over 600,000 people have been deported, not arrested, but deported since Trump got into office by December. And there's also already 1.6 million people who have self-deported. So you're already sitting at, we expected at least 2.2 million will have been erased from the country, from their infestation status to gone status, and possibly more. We could end up being a bit optimistic here to 2.5, maybe 2.8 million year one, which is good. It's a good first step, but it is not nearly enough. You've got 25 to 30 million people in the country illegally, possibly more, certainly not less, right? And so you still need to ramp this way up. But at least it's a start. Now, Chicago is continuing to wage war, though, against the federal government. They are actively fighting against the rule of law. So former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot said in a recent interview that she is launching the ICE Accountability Project, through which a centralized archive of all the purported criminal actions of ICE and CBP agents will be created. She said that the database would include identifying features such as height, weight, hair color, clothing details, and the cars they drive. She said, we have a right to compile that information and put together a profile of each of these agents that's alleged to have committed a crime. They are essentially trying to dox ICE agents. And it isn't just for prosecution, although that's a step that they want to take. It is to allow for intimidation and threats on the ICE agents' families and the ICE agents themselves if they can be identified. Lori Lightfoot, and she's aside from being an idiot, what she's doing here is incredibly, incredibly dangerous. This database that she wants to do to go after these pesky ICE agents, she's like a sequel that nobody asks for. She just keeps popping up in the unwanted queue, and you just have to keep seeing her face pop up. But what she's doing, though, is dangerous. I don't know. I mean, this is, I think, going to end up not just putting you in a constitutional crisis where you might end up with state actors trying to arrest federal agents, but also, again, putting these people on blast who are doing their jobs, protecting the American people, and trying to get them threatened so that they won't do their job. Someone's going to get hurt or killed. I don't think there's any way else to look at that. And it's ironic because she's claiming that her effort is not about doxing them. No. The hell it's not. That's all this is. I mean, what are we even talking about here? She's engaging in classic cancel culture, fuckery, frankly. And she's going to get people hurt. I mean, I know it's hyperbole to say this, but to me, this seems borderline treasonous. These people, Pritzker, the other idiots in Illinois who are doing similar or threatening to do similar things in their official capacity, at what point does trying to stop or impede law enforcement turn to criminal, become a thing that has a criminality at its core? Like, what do you do with these people? Lightfoot and people like her, they're trying to threaten prosecution of ICE agents to stop the feds from arresting criminals who infest their state, the city, by the millions. I don't know. This stuff just enrages me in a way that I can't even really describe. Now, she said it's not about putting them in danger. And I'm sure we're going to hear that. But as residents of the city and the metropolitan area, we have a right to know what's doing what supposedly in our name, but we believe they are committing crimes and it needs to be investigated. And then let a grand jury, let the prosecutor make a determination. It's only serving one purpose. It's so that you can thwart the rule of law because they are trying to wait out the clock. They're trying to slow Donald Trump down so that eventually, because he's only got 3 years left, if they can just outlast him, if you can keep the majority of illegal aliens still in the country, when he's gone, there's no guarantee that the next president, whether it be right or left, will keep pushing for deportations. So this is why they're so hell-bent on doing this. But her actions and those like hers, I think, are the kind of things that will push this country to potential, and again, hyperbole here, I know, but civil war. Now, not just this one action, but these kinds of things will pile up. Because what she's doing is going to lead to a breakdown of law and order. And if you follow this to its conclusion, that only leads to mass chaos and unrest, which eventually would lead to clashes between right and left. And at some point, it ends in violence. And the left seems to just like repeating this. Don't forget, this is the party of slavery who didn't like the rule of law when you had Lincoln threatening to do away with slavery. What did they do? They broke off, tried to go their own way. There was a war about that didn't end in their favor. After the Civil War, they were mad about losing. You get the KKK. You get the Jim Crow laws. You get the segregation. You get the murders and the killings of the black community to keep them out. Once again, the federal government had to come in and they fought them tooth and nail back then. Had to keep those black folks off of the college campuses. And it took the federal government stepping in saying, go F yourself. We're coming in there and we're going to enforce the rule of law. And they just keep repeating this. Like they're blatantly rooting for criminal behavior, criminal activity. Because, of course, the reason why they're pushing for this is they view these tens of millions of non-citizens as incoming voters. I know I've said this ad nauseum on this channel, but it's worth saying again. You go back to 1986, the Simpson-Mazzoli Immigration Reform and Control Act, the Ronald Reagan, Tip O'Neill deal that gave amnesty to 2.7 million illegal aliens. And that deal, they were supposed to build a wall as part of it, which of course got defunded by the 90s. And the reason why it did is the Democrat Party discovered by the early 90s, because the more than half of the Non-citizens who got citizenship resided in California, and California had been a purple-red state, which had voted Republican for 30 years, from the 1950s all the way to 1988. Excuse me. And it never again would go Republican in any presidential election after 88 because 70% of the illegal aliens would vote Democrat. Because most who come here illegally, those that are not trying to, do extra criminal activities after breaking the law, breaking into the country, most of them who come here wanting to live here do so because they are of lower socioeconomic class. They don't have the money to support themselves, and they tend to need government assistance. And people that need government assistance tend to vote for the party that plays Santa Claus the most, which of course is the Democrat Party. That's what all of this is about. With 25 to 30 million now, instead of the 2.7, you're looking at generational power. Apologies, I'm still recovering from the flu here. So, they don't give a damn about these people, really. It's just they view them as a voter class that will give them power. And so they're willing to do anything and everything to keep them here. Because they know that at some point, amnesty is going to happen. There have been 9 attempts since 2000 to grant amnesty to the non-citizens in this country. 9. I think the first attempt was like 2005 with a gang of 8. So they keep trying. But I just, this stuff is serious. And by the way, just so you know, the Trump administration isn't just taking this lying down. Attorney General Pam Bondi talked about this recently, and she basically is putting the Democrat Party on notice. I was going to talk about this, but then I had the flu when I was out. But she basically is telling them that they need to keep their records, which is a classic signal, by the way, for potential RICO charges and more, because she's saying, okay, you're going to pull this stunt with us. We're putting you on notice that we may eventually come after you. Which is good, because sooner or later, I think to genuinely stop this madness, you need to go after these people with criminal charges. Take them to court. If they get convicted, throw them in jail for long periods of time. Because this whole stupid push to throw out law and order left and right, as long as it doesn't suit your political ideology if you're on the left, this trend needs to end. Because it only ends one way if we don't, and that's violence, murder, and mayhem, which we're already well on the way there. I mean, hello, Charlie Kirk, hello, all the other attacks and murders that have happened over the last number of years. So this was just a couple of days ago. Pam Bondi, let's see, Pam Bondi responded to Lightfoot's remarks about creating this portal to track ICE and CBP agents during an interview on Fox News. Told Jesse Waters on primetime. Oh, here's the video of it.
This is better. Ribs Pritzker, they're doxing. They're telling people the whereabouts of ICE agents. Is that legal?
No. And Jesse, first time I've seen the Lori Lightfoot video is just now on your show. She will be getting a letter from us tomorrow to preserve anything that she's done as well to make sure that she's not violating the law. It appears she is. You can.
They need to prosecute these people, these lunatics, because the Karens, the Antifas, all the lunatics on the left, they follow their marching orders from their fearless leaders. But if the leadership acts more like adults, eventually their lunatic rabble base will too. Not right away, but eventually.
Not disclose the identity of a federal agent, where they live, anything that could harm them. Pritzker, same ballgame with him. And, Pelosi got a letter today from Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche. So did Brooke Jenkins.
Now, these are all nice words, by the way. But unless there's action, I still don't think that it means that much. I mean, we've seen a lot of talk from people like Pam Bondi. I'd like to see a little bit more action. Me personally.
DA in San Francisco, we told them preserve your emails, preserve everything you have on this topic, because if you are telling people to arrest our ICE officers, our federal agents. You cannot do that. You're impeding an investigation, and we will charge them if they think they have not met me, because we will charge them if they are violating the law. We will protect our federal agents. They're out there working nonstop, as you're showing right now during a shutdown. These people are out there working to keep Californians safe, yet you've got Pelosi out there saying to obstruct their investigation. You can't do it.
And they need to act on this. It's nice to talk about it. It's good that she's saying this, but this doesn't mean anything if there's no there. So it's important to bring the hammer down on these a-holes. Because make no mistake, Lori Lightfoot, the J.B. Pritzker types, the man who needs a lot of salads, and of course Nancy Pelosi, who's somehow still alive, these people are doing very, very bad things, and they know what they're doing. They know what they're doing is borderlining criminal and probably is criminal. But again, it's the desperation, because Trump actually is doing what he promised this time around. Because in his first term, Trump didn't seem to take deportations with the same level of, well, I mean, he had I can't really blame him. He had the whole Russia hoax ongoing. But the whole deportation bit didn't seem to be the focus. Well, now it is. And they're desperate because this is end game. They've spent decades. The Democrat Party abandoned the white working class, the union voters. All the way back in 2008, Obama publicly put out in the ether that they were no longer going to focus on that. They were going to focus on the new minority majority, because they looked at all these disparate groups, the gay community, the Hispanic community, the black community, the trans community, the furry community, all of these people. They were going to bring them all together as all these little minority groups, which would eventually outnumber the majority once you had enough immigration. This was the plan. And so they abandoned it, which was a critical mistake, because that would open the door for Donald Trump 8 years later to come in and basically snap up a bunch of Democrat states that had all been union states that had forever voted for the Democrat Party because they believed the Democrat Party was there for them, for the little guy, for the workers. But of course, that wasn't to be the case anymore. The Democrat Party saw a bigger prize. They saw endless streams of tens of millions of non-citizens every couple of decades. Because believe you me, if they ever get amnesty, it won't stop there. They'll wait till the next batch of 20 to 30 million and repeat the process ad nauseum until real Americans are so outnumbered that they don't matter anymore. And the USA, as what it used to mean, will cease to exist. So, again, the Democrat Party, this is just par for the course. Their entire lifespan, lifeblood of history in the United States has been about doing illegal crap like this and fighting against the rule of law. It's weird that they never move on from this, that they just continue to repeat, but here we are. Now back to the post-millennial article. Bovino's comments to ABC News comes as he is set to appear in federal court on Tuesday in Chicago after tear gas was deployed over the weekend, because of course they're trying to threaten this ICE agent here. A judge is set to look at whether Bovino had his body camera on and if he gave two audible warnings before deploying tear gas. Because again, this judge has been trying to force the federal agents to wear body cams and to give out warnings and all sorts of unnecessary steps that the judge has no power to tell the federal government to do, but they're trying to enforce. There's a power play going on here right now between a corrupt judge and ICE in Illinois. Now, Bovino told ABC News that when we utilize force in law enforcement, this is in law enforcement in general. As we use force, blah, blah, blah. We saw him say that already in the video. The DHS said in a statement during the operations, Border Patrol agents were surrounded and boxed in by a group of agitators. Federal law enforcement issued multiple law commands and verbal warnings, all of which were ignored. So that's what's happening in Chicago. And it's important that they don't stop. And it's also important that, look, to me, it seems like the Lightfoots, the Pritzkers are doing illegal activities by trying to dox ICE. There better be some kind of action taken here. That's just my opinion. I'm just some a-hole on the internet who, talks to you guys. I don't know anybody. I'm not important, but that's what I think. Let's see what chat is saying. Mike or Clem says the rotation of Earth really makes my day. That's good. You need the planet to spin in your direction. Sarah says, I'm watching, I'm driving, but I'm watching. Awesome. Thank you for being part of the audience. And let's see. Former agnostic. Okay. Yeah. So that's pretty much Chicago in a nutshell, which then takes us over, slightly related, but this is the Antifa story, where you have a hit list from a so-called, terrorist organization that somehow doesn't really exist. But of course, they are doing terrorist things on a daily basis. Let us see here. So, this is also the post-millennial. Turning Point USA student leader attacked near UC Boulder campus after Antifa puts out a hit list flyer. But of course, if you ask certain people in the Democrat Party and in the media, Antifa is just an idea, doesn't exist. The Colorado Antifa groups put out a hit list flyer on the college student, which accused a sophomore of being an active member of neo-Nazi organizations. God, they are so predictable. These guys are so boring. It's funny to me how these lunatics, these radicals, hate-filled, obsessed weirdos on the left just seem to have the same damn playbook that never changes. You got the frothing Karens and their Karenocracy that's always, let me see your manager, and it's the same thing. You got the bottom basement dwelling counterparts, the femboy men, and all of these people operate like freaking NPCs. The cancel culture, the thought police orthodoxy, it's just cultural rot from these weirdos. This movement, because Antifa is Occupy Wall Street. It's the millennials and the Gen Xers who haven't changed. They're still the same hate-filled people, and the Gen Xers in particular, who are still mad about George W. Bush and hanging chads. They seem to just have the same playbook of hate and cancellation over and over and over again. Everyone's a neo-Nazi. Everyone's a Hitler. And it's like they're just mired in the same moment that they were 10, 15 years ago. And the Overton window has already changed, but they're still sitting there playing the same playbook. It's Arrested Development times 10. They are literally stuck in 2015. They're still operating from the same stupid, tired, old playbook of cancel culture that they did 10 years ago when they were getting their way. You got the same screaming, hate-filled rage playbook that just never seems to end. And if you don't agree with the hive mind beliefs, then you're just a bigot. You're a Nazi. You're a fascist. You're an animal. You're a less than. You are not a person. You're just someone who deserves to be eliminated by whatever means necessary. Because, don't you know, your words equal violence. You're hurting them by disagreeing with them. You're shooting them by disagreeing with them. Which then justifies them doing whatever they want to put an end to people who disagree with them. And Antifa is just the same damn thing, the same playbook as the rest of these idiots on the left. So what do we have here? You got Antifa. Once again, they dox and label all conservatives as fascists or Nazis. In fact, all regular people as fascists and Nazis if you dare to go against their orthodoxy. And this, of course, then leads to attacks. And the excuse is always the same. You got these goose-stepping, jackbooted thugs of the brown shirts on the left, the Antifa types, the BLMs, the rage-filled Karens, all the same damn card, over and over and over again. But it's okay because they're anti-fascist, which means no matter how fascist they might act, it's okay because it is in the defense of, or in the attack of fighting fascists. So it's okay. Don't worry about it. But it just never ends. So let's see what the post-millennial has to say. Oh, this is also by Hannah Nightingale. Boy, she's working. She says, police in Boulder, Colorado, are searching for a suspect accused of attacking a 19-year-old Turning Point USA student leader near the University of Colorado, Boulder, on Thursday evening. The attacker is suspected to be an Antifa member. Color me not surprised. The incident occurred around 7 p.m. on Thursday evening in the 2700 block of Baseline Road. Officers arrived at the scene after the male victim, who was out on his bicycle, called 911 to report that he was assaulted by a man on rollerblades. Ooh, let's see what we got here. This is the doofus. Okay, that's actually kind of wow. Oh man. You know, just the way that is wrapped around his skull makes him look like a goose-stepping brown shirt. Oh my God. Oh, that less so, but that first shot, man. So this guy rolls up and decides to attack. So this suspect that we just saw came up to the victim from behind and assaulted him both verbally and with a hockey stick. The victim, though, was not seriously injured and declined medical treatment, according to Boulder police. Let's see what their statement says. Let's see. Boulder police have obtained and are releasing additional photos of a person of interest in a reported assault that occurred Thursday evening on October 23rd. Yada, yada, yada. Officers responded to the scene shortly after 7 p.m. after a male victim called 911 to report that while he was riding his bike, a man on a roller blade approached him from behind and assaulted him verbally and with a hockey stick. The police department released some available images, which we saw, blah, 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 but detectives have since been able to obtain images that are of better quality. They would like to speak with any witnesses who have not yet come forward or anyone who may have information about the identity of the individual in the photographs. So based on preliminary information, it appears as if the suspect may have followed the victim from the University of Colorado Boulder campus onto Baseline Road just prior to the assault taking place. So the guy was following him, which is part of the Antifa weirdness. So blah, blah, blah. Andy No says Colorado Boulder Police has released more photos, yada, yada, which we saw. And I think here we go. So this is the Colorado Antifa group front page. Antifa and Colorado Springs Antifa put out a hit list on a 19-year-old Turning Point USA student leader at the University of Colorado Boulder shortly before he was beaten by someone with a hockey stick. So here is... Yeah, okay, here we go. So this is being put out by your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, a.k.a. Antifa. So their flyer says, this guy is an active member of the neo-Nazi organizations and responsible for white supremacist, anti-Semitic, and anti-LGBTQ plus barbecue vandalism on campus and across Boulder, participated in a white supremacist boxing tournament, meaning we don't like him. This guy doesn't conform to our weird hive mind. But don't worry, my friends. The left says Antifa is not real. This is all a figment of your imagination. Now, the Colorado Antifa group's front page, or range, Antifa, and Colorado Springs Antifa put out a hit list flyer on the college student, which accused the sophomore of being an active member, which we saw. And the Boulder Students for Democratic Society shared the flyer to their social media. Of course. So the Dem students shared this because this is the kind of hive mind these weirdos have. All these cancel culture Nazis, all of these, jackbooted thug types, they all have to get in on this. Oh, someone's been accused of a Nazi. This is one of those wonderful side effects, if you can't tell I'm being sarcastic here, of cancel culture, is that it gave cover to these gooners, these goobers out here who just sit around with no life, who live in hatred and rage. And they get their little dopamine hit by trying to cancel people or by harming someone who disagrees with them. It doesn't get them anywhere. It doesn't make them feel good long term. But those little dopamine hits where they get to tell each of their friends, look what I've done, they live for this crap. So of course they shared it because then they could participate in the canceling of a neo-Nazi, a.k.a. normal person. And so these Democrat Society weirdos urge their followers to share widely on the internet and tag the school to notify them that a Nazi activist on CU Boulder campus existed. Meaning, how dare you allow this person who disagrees with us on campus because he's a Nazi? It's taking all my willpower to say he did not see that coming. Well, although I'm sure he did. Now, where did they get this photographs from? Oh, this is the guy with the rollerblades. This looks like later in the evening. He thought he was being smug there, wearing a mask. So they must have had footage of him earlier then without the mask. Oh, he's an idiot. Now, the suspect in the attack is said to be a white male of medium tall height, of course, because how else could you be a Nazi if you weren't white? And a slender build, and was wearing all black clothing, a black ski mask. Oh, never mind, this is the suspect. And had a green Gatorade bottle. Well, I mean, I guess brown shirts are, one step away from Nazi too. With an orange top in his back right pants pocket. He was skating with a hockey stick, and the suspect fled the scene after the victim called 911, and Boulder police and CU police officers searched the area, but did not locate him. So who knows? Maybe we will find this little goose-stepping Nazi. Well, I guess we'll find out. So, yeah, there you go. Classic Antifa, which, by the way, my friends, don't worry, they don't exist. Sarah says, I think you're important. Well, thank you, Sarah. I appreciate that. I'm just some guy on the internet, but I do appreciate that. Former agnostic says, I don't understand why they can't prosecute those that have actual video and text of their criminal actions. I think that's a sentiment that is echoed by a lot of us here, and a lot of normal people who don't want to see our country fall into endless violence. I think, at some point, you've got to see prosecutions of these people, because I know they're arresting, protesters and rioters, but I want to see court cases. I want to see actual jail sentences handed down, because until that happens, until you start seeing a lot of these people end up in jail, it's all big talk coming from the Trump administration. I mean, Pam Bondi can talk a big game, but until I see people in jail, I still have my doubts. Gunmetal Wolf says, not see that coming, but yeah, it's a terrible joke. It's not as bad as my coffee joke, but it's still up there. That would definitely be high on the list. Let's see. So that would be the big stories here. Let's see what else I have on tap. Oh yeah, you had another. Why is it? This also came across my desk. Speaking of lunatic radicals, you had another transformer, more than meets the eye, teenager, who they're calling a woman with a penis, for Trinity Shockley. So this trans person calling itself Trinity admits to plotting Valentine's Day mass shooting at Indiana High School. Here's our person. Now I'm curious. I got to find out. This is, give me 1 second here. I'm going to find out right now about our little Trinity. Let's see. Because I think so. So this is a bit unusual. So I guess Trinity is female pretending to be male. Oh, because usually this is the other way around. Usually it is the male pretending to be female who does the shoot up the school thing. But apparently not this time. But I guess this is what happens when you coddle mental illness. A mass shooting-obsessed trans teen has admitted to plotting a Valentine's Day massacre at her Indiana high school. Trinity Shockley, who is now 18, is set to plead guilty to felony conspiracy to commit murder in return for a maximum of 12.5 years behind bars in prison, plus 5 years of probation, because who the hell cares about probation? According to the Morgan County Prosecutor's Office. Look at those dead eyes. I hope the 12 years helps. Somehow I am not really going to believe that. Anyway, Trinity, who authorities said identifies as a male and uses the name Jamie. I know we don't like to say it, but if you thought you were a dragon and you're a man, you might have a mental illness. And if you think that your biological sex isn't real and that you might be something else, you might have a problem. Now, I have nothing against people that want to dress up, want to pretend they're something they're not, but when you go from pretending or dressing up as the opposite sex to believing that you are legitimately something you're not, you have a problem. You need help. Anyway, Trinity was arrested in February after police received a tip that she had access to an AR-15 and had purchased a bulletproof vest and was obsessed with mass shooters because, of course, she was. When officers searched Shockley's home, they found a twisted shrine to Parkland, Florida mass shooter Nicholas Cruz and other sick mass shooters, which, by the way, is a very female trait of falling in love with violent killers that women tend to get into. It's I'm drawing a blank on the term right now. It's been a while since I've thought about this, but I'll come back to that. But anyway, they also found evidence that Shockley was planning a shooting at her own school, Mooresville High, and was planning to stage it to coincide with the anniversary of the Parkland shooting, because of course she did. And in addition to jail time and probation, Shockley is also barred from researching school shooters for life. How are you going to enforce that? And will be required to download monitoring software on all electronic devices. Well, I guess shut my mouth, and to be kept accountable. Shockley will be barred from ever owning a gun and will have to pay for mental health counseling. And frankly, she should be instituted into a mental institution and never allowed out the door again until they can assure us that she is cured. The teen is expected to make the guilty plea on November 24th. Shockley was apparently suffering from a mental health crisis. No shit, she thought she was a dude, leading up to her arrest, with a guidance counselor reporting that the teen had been struggling over the recent overdose death of her mother and also thinking that she was a man when she had a vagina. She was also the target of school bullies after she and her father were severely injured in a car accident back in 2022 and became the focus of a community fundraiser to help pay for her treatment, according to her family. But the teen's grief took a hateful turn, with investigators saying they found journals filled with swastikas and phrases like, "I hate you all, die, die, die." She also became obsessed with mass shooters, gushed about her interest in online chat rooms, and even confided her obsession to a school counselor. Where was the school counselor, I wonder? Yeah, so, there's been a lot of these lately. I'm going to have to look into how many there have been, but this kind of stuff should be looked into. When you coddle mental illness rather than helping people who have a mental illness, you're only encouraging the behavior. And in the era of the internet and social media, where having autism or having mental illness is considered a badge of pride and also something to celebrate and promote, and then you have a lot of young people out there who don't have those things, who want to be part of the in crowd, who get in on it, you're promoting this kind of crap. And I wonder, especially with the trans community, what kind of drugs are they on? What is it doing to their psyche? I don't know. I think it's time to look into this. I'm just saying. Wolf says, I still have psychological damage from that coffee joke. It wasn't that bad, Wolf. That joke was not that bad. Sarah says, my dad is from Egypt, and my mom is a white New Yorker of white European ancestry. I'm against all migration, legal as well. We need to first undo all the damage already done to our country. That's actually a good point. See, we've actually done a pause before here in the U.S. on migration into the country post-World War II. There was a understanding that we needed to give people time to assimilate to our culture before we opened the door. But there was about a 20-year moratorium on that. And that helped the country to absorb it, and then we opened the doors again 20 years later and slowly started again. And we're at that point where it's probably smart to dramatically reduce, because I think we bring in over 1 million people anyway through legal channels every year, which is already probably too much, if we're being honest. Wolf says, no, it was bad. My coffee-related joke. I don't know. Well, I know this might annoy the stick to the issues crowd, but so not as to leave you in the dark, because that's not very fair. I related a joke that I've cultivated with Wolf the other day, and I guess I'll tell it to you now so as not to leave you hanging. It's coffee related. It's the kind of joke that helps you get caffeinated to face the day. And essentially, Wolf is already laughing. Essentially, there's a man who's on his way to work, and he drives by a coffee shop, and he says to himself, I could really go for a cup of coffee right now. I need a boost. So he pulls into the drive-thru, but the drive-thru's broken down. Well, he's already in line. He's already here, and he tells himself, I need more coffee, and I don't want to go to another coffee shop, so screw it. I'm just going to go in. So he goes inside the coffee shop, but there's a really long wait. But again, he tells himself, well, I'm already here. I'm just going to wait it out. So he waits in line. And he waits. And he waits. And he waits. 30 minutes he's in line, right? So by the time he gets up to the counter, to the register, he's pretty pissed off. And he's planning on giving the person behind the counter a piece of his mind. But when he gets to the register, to his shock and surprise, it's not a person standing behind the counter at all. No, it's a giant T-Rex. So he's looking up at this giant Tyrannosaurus Rex, and the Tyrannosaurus Rex is looking down at him, and they share a moment, staring into each other's eyes, not saying a word. And finally, the T-Rex looks at him and says, I'm sorry about the long wait, sir. We're shorthanded. Now, Wolf says that gave him cancer, but I don't think it was that bad, personally. So there you go. But anyway, so that is your Trantifa for the day. So trans kid trying to shoot up a school, going to jail. And then you've got the ICE arresting 3,000 people. And you've got Lori Lightfoot trying to dox them. Probably going to face criminal charges if Pam Bondi has any cojones. So we better hope that she does. And of course, the Antifa hit list. And I'm kind of surprised my voice, honestly, has held out so far. I'm sorry, Sam. Don't be disappointed with that terrible joke. It's not a dad joke, really. I swear. But anyway, so I'm gonna keep it a little bit short today. I'm trying to push these things to about an hour and do multiple topics. My voice is a little bit shaky since coming back from the flu, but it actually surprisingly held up well today. I sound off, but it'll get back there soon. Speaking of coffee, ever try coffee brand coffee? No, but I've heard of it. Wasn't that the Quarterings coffee? What's his name from the Quartering? But yeah. So, anywho, I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna leave it here today. Thank you guys so much for joining me again. By the way, it's being gone for a couple of days. It's not fun. I wanted to be here, but I couldn't go more than 5 minutes without coughing out a lung. And so I decided I didn't want to subject you all to that. So it is what it is. But again, thank you guys so much for joining me today. I will definitely be back on tomorrow. And I will probably be looking at some other stories that I might film later tonight, which I'll put up tomorrow on both this channel and on my alternate channel. This is my personal YouTube channel. This is Topical Umbrella. And this channel is more sarcasm, more humor, and you also get alternate stories that will not be maybe necessarily the mainstream stories. Like one of the topics that I'm probably going to get into for a video for tomorrow is going to be about our good friend Jennifer Lawrence, who now understands why her early career persona was so hated. And if you think she got it right, the answer is no. She just recognizes that she was an annoying bee, and we'll talk about that. And I wouldn't want to caress your earballs here on this channel with these kinds of non-top tier stories. But with Topical Umbrella, we like to have a bit more fun, more sarcasm, more humor. And so if you want to get some of that as well, feel free to join me on my alt channel, Topical Umbrella. And again, thank you guys so much for joining me. Thank you, Wolf. Thank you, Sam, Kristen, Thrift, Diane, Sarah, and anyone else I'm forgetting. You guys are amazing. And appreciate you guys joining me on this journey. So I will see you all next time, and see you then.